Everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania is a 2023 American superhero film based off of Marvel Comics, featuring the characters Scott Lang as Ant-Man, Hope Pym as Wasp, produced by Marvel Studios, distributed by Walt Disney Studios. It is the sequel to Ant-Man 2015 and Ant-Man and the Wasp 2018, and the 31st film of Marvel Cinema, the MCU. The film was directed by Peyton Reed, written by Jeff Loveless. Jeff Loveless from Office fame, from Rick and Morty fame. He's a writer on there. Peyton Reed directed the previous two movies, I believe. And of course, we're bringing back Paul Rudd, Scott Lang, Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne, alongside Jonathan Majors, Catherine Newton, David Schmalchin, Katie O'Brien, Willem Jackson Harper, and a couple other individuals that are possibly cameos. I don't exactly know who's shown in the trailers, except for a couple characters. So, in the film, Lang and Van Dyne are transported to the quantum realm. I'm going to kind of stop right there and give my initial impressions about this movie. So, I guess rewinding, let's talk about the MCU as a whole. Everyone has kind of talked about how the Phase 4 of Marvel hasn't exactly been their favorite part of the Phase 4, or it hasn't been their favorite part of the MCU. So, going into this, we have all of the movies. If I can rewind through the back, kind of thinking off the top of my head, recently just saw Thor: Love and Thunder. Before that was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, those two movies have kind of diminishing returns, in my opinion, but they aren't. I didn't like Thor: Love and Thunder really that much at all, and I thought Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was a little sloppy. Before that, it was maybe Shang-Chi. I'm reading them off the top of my head backwards. Basically, and Wakanda Forever. I'm kind of replaying them back in my head. Let me see if I can pull them up real quick. Marvel reviews. So, yeah, we had Wakanda Forever, Love and Thunder. I liked Wakanda Forever, but it kind of feels still like a setup movie. It's not 100%, and I understand that there's circumstances why I can't, be 100%, due to the Chadwick Boseman of it all. Thor: Love and Thunder, I thought was fine, not great. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, kind of messy. No Way Home, I thought was unexpectedly really heartfelt, fun, and some of the best we've gotten of Phase 4, but again, it is a co-Sony production. Shang-Chi, I enjoyed Shang-Chi. I know a lot of people had a lot of flack during it. They're like, they're not feeling it. I'm kind of like, there's some great performances. The CGI is a little heavy, but I think it was overall a pretty fun movie. Eternals, it's an ambitious mess. That's kind of what I called it. The Black Widow, better late than never. And so I think those are all the movies that I can think off the top of my head that have come out post Endgame. And I think there was another Spider-Man in there as well somewhere. I don't know if I got to record that. But anyways, there's been a large swath of Phase 4, plus you have all the additional television shows that are coinciding with the movies. Speaking of WandaVision, Loki, we got She-Hulk, we got Moon Knight, we got all these different individuals coming with their own television shows, and they all have some sort of little sprinkle into the MCU. So I'm kind of like, this is a lot of Marvel content, and I've talked about this in the previous movies, that we can only do so many Marvel style movies without seeing a very similar pattern. And so this is where this movie comes in. This movie is riddled with tropes and patterns we've seen in not only other Disney movies, but other sci-fi films as well. So I think I actually did forget Miss Marvel in that mix too. I'm sure there's other films that are in between all of those 31 Marvel films as well. But to say the least, there's a fuck ton of content coming out. And with saying that, it's a lot to keep up with. Even as someone that considers like a part-time hobby is watching these shows, it's still a fucking lot. So I can only imagine the average consumer trying to keep up with all of this. So continuing on, plans for the third Ant-Man film were confirmed in November 2019, with Reed and Rudd returning. Loveless was hired in April 2020, with the development of the film beginning during the COVID-19 pandemic. The film's title and new cast members were announced in December 2020. The filming began in Turkey and began in Turkey early February 2021, while additional filming occurred in San Francisco in mid-June, ahead of principal photography starting at the end of July at Pinewood Studios in Berkshire at the end of November. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania premiered in Los Angeles on February 6th and was released in the United States on February 17th, 2023, as the first film in Phase 5 of the MCU. It's received mixed reviews from critics, with the screenplay and storyline receiving criticism, while the performances, especially those of Majors and Pfeiffer, and visuals, were praised. The film has grossed over $250 million worldwide, becoming the third highest grossing film of 2023. It has a running time of 124 minutes, just a little bit over 2 hours, so it's not too excessively long. Cinematography is by Bill Pope, the same guy that's worked with Sam Raimi on the previous Spider-Man. He worked on the original Matrix movies, and this is on a budget of $200 million. So with going in knowing all of this, the amazing cast, all of this possible, quantum realm wonkiness, multiverseness, with Loveless helming the writing, I was hopeful going into this. I did hear mixed reviews going into it, so I can't say that I went in completely blind. I didn't hear too many reviews specifically about it, though. So I was like, maybe it's like Eternals bad, maybe it's somewhere mid-tier MCU Phase 4 Marvel. I tried to go in with a very open mind, just as I do all of my movies, watching it, even knowing that it had some mixed critical reception. With saying that, before we go into spoilers, pros, cons, the pros, the cast, basically, and that's about it for me. The cons are almost everything else. Like I said, I don't think this is the actor's fault at this, but I was basically, there's too many characters. It feels like it's mostly a setup for Kang. There are tropes in this movie you're going to see in, like I said earlier, tons of other movies, even the ones that we've seen in Disney. The CGI, it says it's praised here, but I was not crazy about the CGI. I understand there's over 6 production houses that are working on different CGI pieces of this movie. So, that could be anywhere from the backgrounds to the characters to, the actors. They could be working on anything. So my whole thing is, it looks consistently the same. The thing is, I'm just not crazy about the consistency. It looks, Double Toasted said, it looks very the chewy version, the fun version. I would have said like the Fortnite version. It looks almost too Guardians of the Galaxy-esque and almost too ill-defined at the same time. I have weird, it's not really gripes, but I just really appreciate good world building and understanding how worlds work. And generally Disney does a pretty good job of, introducing to you to a different world. Think of like Coco. That's a great um example, in my opinion, kind of going into the Coco world. I won't go into spoilers, but exploring it, seeing all the doodads, how it works, the cool people, the bad people, the cool person that's probably going to betray you later. There is all of these plots, and then there's the big brawl at the end, where it's a big without spoilers on anything, there's some sort of big riot and stuff like that. We've seen these plots in storylines in other movies. And so a child going in to see this, someone under 10 years old probably, is going to say, wow, that was pretty fun. That was, really cool. And then an adult or someone that has at least seen two or three of these types of storylines told before is going to say, yeah, it was, in my opinion, it's fine, serviceable, it does its job, but like I said, we've seen it before. And that's the biggest thing is Marvel needs to kind of acknowledge that not only have we seen this before, we've seen this before in their own worlds. So let's get into, let me see if there's anything else we need to discuss. Post credits, we'll talk about that after. Yeah, the world, the rules of the world are a little bit underdefined, and I just don't know where that kind of came from. But like, and I, what I'm hearing is some people are like, the world was so quote unquote expansive or quote unquote lived in, and I would have said it's visually looks like it's expansive and visually looks somewhat lived in, but like I didn't feel like the characters, our main actors, taking off their helmets all day every day. I guess there's oxygen down here. I don't know how it works. Is it hot? Is it cold? I don't know. Is it uncomfortable? The sense of urgency of being in this place was almost non-existent. And so it didn't really feel like we're in a quote unquote new world. It just feels kind of a lot of people said this felt like a rejected Star Wars movie script. And I don't disagree with them, mostly because they have some of the same, outsider walks into a bar with the bar full of crazy creatures, and the bartender obviously is strange as well too, and they're probably going to drink something that's weird, and it's that type of stuff. I feel like anyone who's ever seen a movie that has gone through these plot beats before, everything was like, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. It was one of the most predictable movies I've seen in a very long time that has not nearly enough teeth on it. And so that's why Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania feels messy as well. It almost feels like there was a big redirection in it. From the trailers I'm hearing I don't think it's considered spoilers that much to talk about the trailer, about what the trailer is selling versus what we actually get. We'll talk about what we actually get later, but the trailer sounds like it's selling Kang giving Ant-Man more time with his family. I don't think we get that story at all, but we'll continue on into the plot and discuss that. So, for the people that love it, great. I'm glad you love it. I kind of don't understand why you wouldn't critique it a little bit more, of saying, these characters are underwritten, these aliens, factions, what are their motivations, what is going on here. You can have different creatures of different quote, gleep glop things, but normally the thing I liked about Star Wars and the way that the world may be expansive, you may have these gleep glop characters, werewolves in the fucking first one. What I'm saying is, at least they have like almost like different races and stuff like that. For the quantum realm, it doesn't feel like, oh, there's a whole bunch of gleep glops over here, or there's a whole bunch of Wookiees over here, or a whole bunch of these broccoli tree looking men thing over here. It didn't feel like there was like a faction of people that all kind of resembled the same thing, and some of them were humanoid looking, like some of them look like broccoli man, and then I guess that's how this world works, and everybody goes to the bar, and even if you're in the quantum realm. I just feel like a little bit too casual and a little bit too, not just casual, but like based off our own world. Man walks into a bar, that type of thing, big betrayals. I it's hard to talk about this really in super depth, but yeah, I don't think this is the movie that they are trying to sell you on. Let me see what this movie has right now on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm pretty sure it's pretty low down there. 48%. Gotcha. That's pretty low. again, that's 48% of the individuals would actually recommend it over 60%. So I do feel like I've been kind of railing on this movie a little bit extra hard. I do want to give some praise to the hard workers that made this movie. To even think of making this type of movie, put aside the fact that a lot of these storylines have been told before, I think is quite a feature in itself. The special effects alone are just like, whoa, these would have been impossible 15, 20 years ago. Some of them might not want to do. We'll talk about that as well. But let's get into the plot a little bit more, and we'll kind of break down just a little bit more about this movie, why it did, maybe it didn't. We'll try to have a nice, equilibrium of these two ideas, because I am seeing a fair amount of people that are like, it's not that bad. People may be overreacting. I'm not mad at it. I think that's I'm my firm. Let me see. My firm. Let me see. I'm pretty sure my rating was 6 out of 10. Yeah, it was 6 out of 10. It's got 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb. So 6 out of 10 works for me. Let's hop into the plot for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And again, for the full review, patreon.com/lookitupodcast has the full review. You'll get the full podcast. You can get either access to the $1, $2, $3 tabs. You can it'll have access to the animated shows that we are covering on there. We have old school retro reviews, old movies older than 5 years. We're getting ready to record the Magic Mike 1 and 2. Was that Magic Mike and then Magic Mike XXL? It's going to be great for the Patreon. So if you want the full review, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, be sure to check out patreon.com/lookitupodcast. And again, check out Look It Up Podcast for all of the links. Again, they are in the description of your podcast. I forgot to mention, again, I feel like a lot of things I'm forgetting to mention. Should have wrote these down. Spotify. We are now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. We are on all your favorite podcast applications. Use whichever one you'd like. 5 stars on all of them. You know what to do. So let's hop in to the plot for Quantumania. During her days of entrapment, the spoilers ahead, by the way. During her days of entrapment in the quantum realm, Janet Van Dyne encounters Kang, the smooth Kang, played by Jonathan Majors, an exiled traveler who claims that they can both escape from the quantum realm if she can help him rebuild his multiversal power core. And again, we've seen, I believe, a version of Kang in the Loki series, and that's about all I know. And I watched the shit and I don't even understand the multiverse correlation of this. So I'm someone that actively follows what's going on. I feel like I podcast, I listen to it, I review a lot of this, and I'm like, I think this is what's going on. So it's like someone that is actually studying this shit is like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Not studying this shit, it's like, I guess that's what's going on. So this comes from the first, little bit of the movie. Janet is holding all of this fucking information back that she has been hanging with Kang. They probably had a relationship, but Disney didn't want to have no interracial shit going on, especially because their age differences or something like that. This movie would have been 10 times better if she was betrayed by her lover, which happened to be Kang, because I don't care if you're in there for, 5 minutes, 5 years or 30 minutes, it's that my whole thing is like, you're probably going to get lonely, and probably besides the fact that you're going to get lonely, you may not even think you're going to get out. So overall, I think there's like a relationship problem between everybody that's kind of going on in this movie. It feels like it was written one way. It could have been really emotional, but they were like, we want the family to have a good time. Family time. All the time. Anytime. So, in my guess, I'm not exactly sure when this was originally supposed to come out. I'm trying to figure out what the original date was for this. I think Disney is specifically trying to have a fun one, a serious one, another fun one, and then another serious one, maybe two fun ones. And I think that's how the movie is going to go. Maybe Ant-Man would have been more serious had Wakanda Forever come out at a different time. Or if Wakanda with Forever was a more uplifting movie in a way. Not that it's not a great movie, but it is a very sullen movie because it has so much to do with the loss of the great Chadwick Boseman. So after they manage to repair it, Janet sees a vision of Kang conquering and destroying destroying entire timelines. Kang reveals he was exiled by his own variants out of fear, which drives Janet to turn on him. Outmatched, Janet uses her PIM particles to enlarge the power core and render it unusable. So this is all information. Most of this information is not revealed till about the middle of the movie. For some reason, it has at the beginning of here, but we're only shown like glimpses at the beginning. So because we don't get all of that information of what the actual threat is until halfway through, we're just kind of like, quantum realm. Kind of cool, I guess. Got some blobby things with the whole thing, holes and not holes. I don't know. I had a weird relationship with this, the humor in here. I was like, who's it for? Kind of feels like for kids or for teens or preteens or something like that. I don't know. Who is this for? The problem recently feels like I don't know who the Marvel movies are for. It feels like they're trying to spread their four quadrant. It's got to hit the nerds, the family, the critics, and everybody else. But I just don't know if it's doing that these days. In present day, after the Battle of Earth, welcome to Earth. Scott has become a successful memorist and has been a memorist and has been living happily with his girlfriend. He's, writing books, kind of hanging out with his girlfriend. I thought that they were moved in by now, but I guess they're not. Hope Van Dyne. Now, tons of people have discussed Evangeline Lilly's views on the most recent things. I'm trying not to bring that into this as of right now. So, with saying that, I think she's fine in this movie. I don't think I'll just address her that much. The character herself is extremely underutilized. But with saying that, I'm like, it's. I feel like she was written out of the movie, mostly. Doesn't have much to do, which kind of leads with a lot of the characters. Too many characters in this. Scott's now teenage daughter Cassie has become a political activist, resulting in her spending some time in jail before being bailed out by her father, whom she's estranged from since starting focusing more on his celebrity than his duties as Ant-Man. Which I don't blame him. He's getting older. There's other people in the world that are doing shit. Like I don't feel like there's a full acknowledgement of how old these heroes are, that they've saved the world so many times. If in real life, I kind of feel like they should have been, well taken care of by whoever. Like, what if they get like some funding or something like that? They shouldn't have to worry about money, especially since they're famous. While visiting Hope's parents, Hank Pym and Janet, Cassie reveals that she has been working on a device that can make contact with the quantum realm. Upon learning this, Janet panics and forcefully shuts off the device. but the message is received. It's like she's turned it on. Cassie's already turned it on, and there's messages like beeping down to the quantum realm, resulting in a portal that opens and pulls the five of them into the quantum realm. Now, I had heard, piggyback on whatever this other podcaster said. I can't think of off the top, but might have been Double Toast, might have been film. I think it was the Filmcast that said this, that this movie would have been prime from an A-B plot line, like having someone in the quantum realm and having someone out of the quantum realm. I almost wish his daughter would have been out of the quantum realm. And then at the very end, how she comes in and rallies the troops, maybe had some sort of bigger influence. There is such a, I don't know how to describe this. I feel like there are 5 rooms everybody is in the entire movie. And there's maybe a little bit of battling here in the middle, but I don't feel like the traveling through the quantum realm feels tangible in any way. I know that they shot this on the volume where they have the CGI and they can see the what's around them, behind them, but it still felt like they couldn't fucking move. It felt intangible in a way. It feels the exact opposite. This is the exact opposite of the movie I talked about in what's it called? In The Northman. The Northman felt gritty and real. And I was like, this looks like a pain in the fucking ass to make in comparison to the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Realm, where it doesn't feel like anyone barely gets a scratch on them. Air conditioning is always blowing on them. It just feels like they're inside. They kept saying, like, who the fuck would want to work at Baskin and Robbins? They're like, 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 is it that bad to work at Baskin and Robbins? Like, Jesus, just shitting on all of everybody in there. So I don't think it's that bad of a place. So where are we at? Shrinks down, and he almost he has to basically correlate all of the Ant-Man at the same time. He's like, all right, they're not real, they're on my team, blah blah blah. Everyone come together. You're like, okay. However, Kang reneges on the deal after Ant-Man gets the power core and Hope arrives and helps him acquire it. Kang reneges on the deal, capturing Janet and destroying her ship with Hank on it. It's like, oh shit, is this gonna actually have stakes? Like, my pulse just like went up like half a beat. I think I'm hitting 50 BP, beats per minute now. So it's like, maybe I'm actually feeling something in this movie. After being rescued by his ants, just a flood of giant ants go through. So at the beginning, we find out that the ants apparently are smart enough to have colonized or make some sort of quantum realm technology that's kind of not referred to till the end of the movie, barely. It's almost like from a different script. And so these ants that fell into the original quantum realm with them at the beginning of the movie come back at the very end, squad up, it's charge, gotta get them. And so they're getting them, and they're charging after Kang, and it giving me big Indiana Jones, Kingdom of Crystal Skull vibes, unfortunately. And I'm like, damn, that, Kang is like saying how Ant-Man, you ain't shit, you ain't gonna do shit, you ain't got me, you can't control time, you have to hang with Janet and Hope and Cassie, and you can't do shit, and you talk to ants. And then he's like, oh yeah, well, these ants are about 50 foot tall, yeah. And then he yeets all these ants onto him, and it's just like a flood of ants coming after Kang. It's like, so he's going down. And so from there, it's like, all right, so Kang's badassness just completely, blasting everybody, killing literally everyone that hits the blast, but he hits the heroes and they're fine, whatever. Kind of inconsistent, but whatever. He's just a little bit of blast for our heroes because they got the plot armor on. And so after Janet, just after being rescued by ants who were also pulled into the quantum realm, rapidly evolved and became hyper intelligent, Hank helps Scott and Hope as they make their way to Kang. Cassie rescues Genitora. There's this big battle of random faceless blue-headed look stormtrooper knockoff ass looking ass dudes that have nothing. You can kill one of them, you can kill 1,000 of them, doesn't matter. It doesn't feel like anything really matters at this point because they're kind of faceless, nameless. And we have like four main characters, including Broccoli Man, the whole guy, and Genitora, just like the standard uh like Native American stand-ins, I guess. Like they, I didn't understand the look of that at all. I didn't. Why are we kind of doing the, the natives versus the quote unquote big gov or big man or the authority kind of figure? It didn't really make much sense in this movie, and I didn't even think we needed it. So we had. Laserhead Man. I was like, one of these fuckers is gonna die. I was like, Kang literally gonna blast all y'all, and he literally kills Laserhead Man. So I'm like, oh well, there goes that man. And the further the movie went on, I was like, does this movie have the balls to actually kill a character? And the more jokey it became, the more MODOK, they knew MODOK's name like immediately. They just, it's like the convenience in the writing is killing me, Smalls. You're really killing me. So, with saying all of that, let's continue on. And I didn't really even talk about Cassie doing the big rousing speech for everybody. That was so unearned. There's so much unearned about this movie. I'm like, Cassie didn't even make sense for her to be doing that. Does anyone even know who or what she is? People just know what humans are. Everyone can they get some goop in their mouth and all of a sudden they can speak English. It's just very, very convenient. And it doesn't feel like organic and natural writing. Like I've things we've seen before and just done better in other things, unfortunately. And of course, Cassie does the big rousing speech, which we've seen in other Disney properties just last year and seen and done better. So I wouldn't be as harsh on this movie if you hadn't just done it in a television show within the last 6 months and it was done so much better by the same company. It's a little bit like, what's going on here, people? You couldn't come up with anything else. So, okay, so Cassie rescues Genitora. Sorry, Gentora, and they commence an uprising against Kang and his army. Of course, Kang's like, he's blasting everybody, and this is right before he gets taken down. During the fight, Cassie convinces Cross to turn sides and fight Kang. And of course, he does. Though he sacrifices his life in the process. It's like, we can't afford to do MODOK anymore, so out skis. And I don't think anybody wants to see that. Janet fixes the power core as she, Hank, Hope, and Cassie jump through a portal home. Even though it took her fucking 30 years to do it the first time, whatever, we can just do it real quick. It seemed like the jumping through the portal was a big deal at the beginning of the movie. Like, oh my gosh, how do we get back? To the end, we're like, oh, we got the shit. Let's go. We got the fast pass. But Kang attacks Scott, and nearly beating him into submission. And this is a pretty big ass whooping. I was like, can we get like a little bit more of this kind of hand to hand fighting? I mean, it's not just the laser blast that we're getting anymore, because the power sets were getting a little bit like, wait, what can we do? I know Ant-Man can get really big, and I like when he does, or really, really small, or showing the epic scale and size of the things around him, like in the real world versus how small they are. That was the coolest thing about Ant-Man. And now having him in the quantum realm, it's like, I can't tell the size, scale, smell. What the hell is going on here? What is going on? So, seeing him get beat by Kang at the very end, you're like, God dang, is he gonna fucking kill him? Just beat him to death. It would be tonally fucking wrong for Kang to kill almost anybody in this, almost because the entire movie we're cracking jokes about things and holding vital information about things. Hope returns, and together with Scott destroy the power core and knock Kang into it. Do you hear that she doesn't return almost the entire movie? There's like one big line that I think Darren's like, oh, Hope, you got a haircut or something like that. It's like, that's the biggest thing that's happened with Hope Van Dyne. So So Hope returns. They, together with Scott, destroy the power core and knock Kang into it. And Kang is like, he's like, ah! Like getting sucked into this thing. And you're like, all right, that's, I guess there goes the badass Kang. And if you've seen, previous, I assume you've seen previous uh, things that have been marketed for this or previous Kang content with Jonathan Majors. This has happened before. So what? I mean, how many are we gonna get? Like, I don't understand. Like, the stakes of this are getting a little bit too confusing to the point where it's like I need to see the next story not in 2.5 years. I need to see it sooner than later, and y'all need to fix some of this. Like, because what I'm realizing is we're getting so much in the comic book realm of, hey, remember when that happened? Remember when that happened? And they are talking like it just happened yesterday, when for the viewers, it's been 2.5 years, 3.5 years, a lot of them, and some of them aren't even referring to things that happened in the previous movies. So we're like, we keep going back to, remember when the blip happened 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago? Do you remember when this happened? Do you remember when this happened? So lot of thoughts, lot of thoughts. Let's continue and finish this up. Kang's pulled into oblivion, and that's what's him. Cassie reopens the portal on her end for Scott and hope to return home as Scott happily resumes his life. He begins to rethink what he was told about Kang's death, being the start of something terrible, but brushes it off. He's just eating some evidently not great cake from Baskin and Robbins again, and it's like, man, like, what was that ending? I was like, I've seen a few endings that are like, just like, what the hell happened? And did y'all have a different ending? And they were like, wait, we can't end it that way. We got to end it this way. So what I'm hearing is the original ending might have killed one of the Langs, which makes sense to me. It almost makes more sense to kill Hope in this, but it still wouldn't have been emotionally that affecting for me. It's just like, oh man, instead of, there's just not the emotional gravitas in this movie that really has that. I don't know, that has that kind of effect. Like, there's no emotional gravitas in this movie that feels like it really matters, except for the relationship, the apparent friendship that Janet and Kang had that was completely platonic. And I was like, that would have been the most interesting place to mine any sort of anything interesting. And so that's kind of what happens in the movie. Here are the mid-credit scenes for everybody that has not seen it. In a mid-credit scene, numerous variants of Kang are concerned by Earth's 616 increased interest in the multiverse and plan their uprising. We have like 1 million or 1 billion Kangs, and they're all in the stadium, and some are doing all these different things. Some heard someone say they heard barking or something. I was like, what the hell is barking? What the fuck? In the post-credit scene, a lot of post-credit scenes for Marvel's stuff has been just trailers recently. I don't remember when that started, but I want to say Multiverse was shown at the end of Thor. Thor showed Multiverse, I believe. And I guess the previous one showed Thor. Anyways, in this post-credit scene, Loki and Mobius, locate another Kang variant named Victor Timely on Earth in the 1900s. And that, my friends, is the final bit of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. My freaking goodness, that was a chunky one. Anyways, let me know what you thought about the review. Let me know what you think about the MCU's Phase 5 beginning. Let me know how it can improve. Let me know what you think about the movie, the channel, subscribe, in the podcast, on the Spotify's, on the Apple iTunes. We are on YouTube's, we're on the Twitches, we're on all the social medias in the quantum realm and outside the quantum realm with Broccoli Man. We're all here. That's all I got to say. Be sure to check out the rest of the Luck It Out podcast. The rest of the Luck It Out podcast dropping down the pipe on the, what do we got coming down the pipe? believe we're going to do Magic Mike: The Last Dance. We're going to discuss that, and that will be coming down the pipe for everybody. And of course, we're going to be discussing the original two on the Patreon feed. So patreon.com/LuckyDog podcast. Look for there in the next week or so for the Magic Mike movie reviews. Those are going to be a lot of fun. I got to say, this Magic Mike is a fascinating look into a trilogy of movies that have so much behind them. A lot of talent, a lot of stripping, but there's also a lot of heart. I'll tell you which one I believe actually is pretty damn good. So be sure to check out those reviews coming down the pipe. LuckyDogPodcast.com. You know what to do. Take it easy.